Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Villages of Velaria. This is a newer game by Daily Magic Games. It is a 1 to 5 player competitive game, so each player is working against the other players to have the most victory points at the end to be the overall winner. It takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour to play. And in the game itself, each player is playing a Dutch or Duchess, and they are building up their village to trying to gain the attention of the king to make their village the new capital of Velaria. So players are going to do this by taking turns, and during each player's turn, the player will select one of 5 different actions to perform. From there, then each other player can follow suit with that action, so in this way it keeps everybody engaged at all times. And when one player reaches a number of village or a number of buildings and adventurers based on the number of players, then that will trigger the end of the game, and the player that has the most points at that point will be the overall winner of the game. So my opinion of this so far has been very good. I really enjoy Daily Magic Games games, and I like the fact that most of their games incorporate actions or different things that keep all the players engaged at all times. So you don't have a lot of downtime in between turns, as no matter if it's your turn or somebody else's turn, there's always something to do or to pay attention to or to interact with. And this game is no exception, as the active player chooses an action. Once they've completed their action, then the other players, going in clockwise order, can follow suit with that action and do an action that's very similar to it. Maybe not gain all the bonuses of that action, but they'll be able to do certain things that are part of that action. So in that way, each player is going to stay active no matter if it's their turn or not. On top of that, this game, like some of the other Daily Magic games, is a pretty quick playthrough overall, and it's not hard to pick up. They do a really good job in the rule books of outlining everything. There really isn't a lot of questions or things that stump players, or at least that I've found in my group and that. And everything is really well laid out, and as always, their artwork is very well done, and they have a very interesting style to their games. So I would definitely recommend checking this one out if you guys have a chance, and I am looking forward to what they do next as well. From that being said, I'd also like to point out that I did just start a Facebook and Twitter account, so I'd love to see you guys over there to get your opinions. And like I've stated in some other videos, I want to turn this series also into a conversation. So have you guys played this game, or have you played other Daily Magic games, and what are your opinions of their games? Do you enjoy them? Do you not? And if so, why or why not? I'd love to hear your thoughts in those comments section below, and I'll look forward to reading some of those. And so let's go ahead and head to the table, and I'll teach you guys how to play. There are 2 different types of cards. The first type are the building cards, which we're looking at now. And each of these cards is going to have some different information on it. In the top corner of each card is going to list the card type. So we have Soldier, Holy, Shadow, and Worker. Then we have the card's name in the middle, and the victory points that card is worth at the end of the game. Then we have any special abilities that card has or actions that it provides us. We have the resources that card needs in order to be built. And in the bottom of the card, we have the resource section that if you develop the card instead of building it, you'll be able to place it underneath your castle and you'll gain a new resource. Like that. The second type of card are the adventurer cards, which are always going to have the adventurer icon in the top corner. In the middle of the card again is going to be the name of that adventurer, and the victory points are going to be on the side. Some adventurers are also going to have special conditions or special abilities that they will give the player, or victory conditions. So for example, with this guy here, he gives you 1 victory point per soldier building that you've built. Then finally, going down the side of the card are the different icons of the buildings that you must have built already in order to recruit that particular adventurer. So to recruit a paladin, you have to have a soldier building and a holy building built already in order to recruit him. And all adventurers are recruited, they were never built. For board and player setup, the first thing you're going to do is shuffle up the building deck. And I'm going to be using a mat from Daily Magic Games that has everything laid out for it, but you don't necessarily need to buy the mat or have it if you don't want it. So we're going to shuffle out the building deck. and deal out 6 building cards to each player, and we're going to play a 2-player game. So from there, then we're going to go ahead and put out 5 buildings, and the rest will go off to the side. Then we're going to do the adventure deck, so we'll go ahead and shuffle that up. And same thing with the adventurers, you'll put out 5 of those across the top, and the rest will go off to the side. Now the bottom row of this, I'm not sure what that's used for. I'm assuming that they're going to have an expansion, or maybe it was part of the Kickstarter. From here, then, based on this chart, as you guys can see here, we're going to gather a number of gold coins and place them in their section. Once you have that, so we're playing a 2-player game, so you'll have 14 coins, then go ahead and give 3 coins to each player. Then each player is also going to receive a castle card and a player aid. From there, then you can go ahead and choose the starting player. So we're going to have yellow be the starting player, and so you can go ahead and give them the action card and the castle. From here, then there's one special action that happens at the beginning of the round, only during the first round, and you're going to start with the starting player and proceed around for each player, and each player is going to look at their hand of cards and choose one to develop free as a resource, which again is the bottom section. So we're going to go ahead and, since we have 2 witches' huts, we're going to go ahead and use one of those as a resource. So it'll go underneath our keep as a resource. So now our player has a magic resource and a wild. So then going to the next player, we're going to go ahead and develop the encampments. From here, we're ready to start the game. Before starting the game, I want to go over a couple other special rules real quick. So the first is hand limit. You may have at the most 8 cards in your hand after leading or following an action. You can always draw more, but after you must discard down to 8 cards in your hand. And then the second rule is discarding and drawing cards. So when discarding a card, you're going to discard a card face up to one of the piles. And this is a potential strategy, as you can block certain cards from other players if you notice they're going after particular factions or cards that are really good. And the same goes for drawing. When you draw a card, you're going to take a card from one of the piles, or you can do a blind draw from the top of the deck. Moving into the first player's turn, the first thing that player is going to do is replenish. Replenishing means that you're going to remove any of the gold coins that are on any of the resources cards that you have and placing them off to the side. These are now your coins which you can use. From there, then our player is going to choose one of the 5 different actions, which are harvest, develop, build, recruit, and tax. He'll choose one of those actions and complete that action. And then going in a clockwise order, each player can optionally choose to follow that action and perform it themselves, following the guidelines listed on the actions, which we're going to take a closer look at. Once all the players have chosen either to follow the action or have passed, and it comes back around to our player who is the active player, his turn is then over, and he will pass the castle and action card to the next player in clockwise order to take their turn. Now let's take a closer look at each of those actions. Now before we get into that, the first thing that I need to discuss is when you perform an action, you must be able to do all of the requirements of that action before performing it. So for example, if you were to develop and it says that you have to discard a card, if you have no cards, then you cannot choose to do that action, even if by doing it you will receive cards that you could discard at that point. So you must be able to complete all of the steps of an action before being able to choose it. So now let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the actions. So our first action is the harvest action, which states that the active player will draw 3 cards, and anybody else that chooses to follow will draw 1 card. So if our player chose this action, he would draw 3 cards either from any of these piles or from the blind's top deck. So let's go ahead and say that he will take this card here, which immediately will be replenished. Then he's going to take this card here, and finally he's going to go ahead and take a card off the top of the deck. These will be added to his hand, and again the hand size is 8 cards, so if he had more than that, then he would have to choose and discard 1. From here, now his action has been completed, so that we would move to the next player who could follow, which I don't know why you wouldn't when it allows you to draw a card, and again that player would choose 1 card to add to his hand. The second action we're going to look at is the develop action. So with the develop action, our active player is going to choose and discard 1 card to add a card to their castle as a resource. So again, we're going to look at our cards and decide 1 to discard. So we'll go ahead and drop the Wizard's Tower, and so we'll place that over one of the other stacks, and then we'll choose 1 of these cards to add as a resource. So we'll go ahead and add the keep as a resource. So again, we'll turn the keep upside down and just slide it right underneath the rest of our resources. So now we have the option to go after food or magic as a resource. From here, then each other player can choose to follow that action, and when they do, those players are going to discard 2 cards to add 1 card as a resource. The third action is a build action. So when a player performs a build action, they will provide the resources to add a building to your village, and then they get to draw a card. So let's go ahead and look at our cards that we have. And so we do have the Witch's Hut, which we do have enough resources for. So let's go ahead and build that one. So we need 1 magic, so we'll place a gold on our magic. And we need a wood. So we can either choose to use the wild that we have, or we can give a gold over to the other player to gain their wood. So we're not going to do that right now, so we're going to go ahead and use our wild, and that will allow us to build the Witch's Hut. And when we build it, the Witch's Hut has an immediate effect, which is signified by the lightning bolt, and it says that we're going to discard 1 card to gain 1 coin. So let's go ahead and discard the Wizard's Tower, and that will allow us to gain a coin. And then finally, to complete our build action, we will get to draw 1 new card. So we'll go ahead and take that Wizard's Tower back. From here, now that our turn is done, it goes to the next player or the other players to choose whether or not they want to follow that action, which when following a build action, they will again provide the resources of a building, and then you would build it in your village. You just don't get to draw a card. The fourth action is a recruit action. So a recruit action says that you are going to pay 1 gold to add an adventurer to your village. So you would take 1 of your free golds that you have that is not on a building and place it back in the bank. And from there, then you would choose 1 of the adventurers that you meet the requirements of. Again, you have to have a building of each type in your village in order to recruit a adventurer. So at this point, since we don't have any buildings built, we could not recruit 1 of those adventurers. From there, once that player has done that, then the other players can follow suit by paying 2 gold to add an adventurer to their village that they meet the requirements of. And the 5th action is the tax action. With the tax action, the active player is going to collect 1 gold from the pile and draw 1 card of their choice. Once they're done, then the other players will have an option to follow suit, and again, they would get to draw 1 card of their choice. So now that we've covered the basics of the different actions, I want to go into a little bit more detail about some of the buildings that have special abilities that we're going to boost those actions. So let's go ahead and say that our player over here has been playing for a little while and has built a mine, a wood mill, and a Wizard's Tower. When he performs a build action or follows a build action, each of these cards are going to grant him special resources that he can use. So let's go ahead and say that our player performs a build action. When he does that, he's going to receive 1 free wood, 1 free stone, and a gold from the resources. Now, when he builds a building, he can choose to use only the resources that are given to him by these special cards. He doesn't need to spend any gold in order to build a building. Now, each one of these cards that grants a resource can only be used once per action. So you couldn't take 2 wood from the woodmill card. You can only use each card one time, and each card in your village can only be built once. So now that we have a mine, we cannot build another mine or a wizard's tower or a woodmill. So let's go ahead and take a look at a second example here. Let's go ahead and say that our player had built the cathedral and the oracle. When he performs or follows a tax action, he will get those resources that are listed. So let's go ahead and say that our player performed a tax action. He gets to collect 1 gold and draw 1 card. On top of that, he'll get to draw another 2 cards and another gold. So he'll receive 2 gold, and he'll receive 3 cards, 1 for the action and 2 for the follow, or for this building. So he would get to draw 3 cards as well. And the same goes for recruitment. If he had this card and he recruited, he would get 2 cards plus the adventure that he chose by spending that gold. So the endgame trigger is, as you guys can see on this chart, based on the number of players. The player that reaches the number of buildings and adventurers first will signal the end of the game. All other players are going to get to complete their turn, and the game will end. At that point, then players are going to total up all the victory points that they have for all the buildings that are built, and any adventurers that they have, and any special abilities that are granted. So, for example, with the knight, he would give 1 victory point for each soldier building that player has. And you're only going to count the adventures and buildings that you've built, not your castle and any resource buildings that you have. Once you've totaled up all your victory points, then you're going to add 1 victory point for each gold that you have in your possession, and the player that has the most victory points at the end will win. Alright, so now with the scoring, each player is going to add up their victory points that are listed on the side of each of their buildings and their adventures, and then any other special bonuses that they get. So our player over here has 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And he also gets an additional point for each worker building that he has. So he has 3 worker buildings. So he'll pick up 3 more points. So that's 22. And then he gets a point for each gold that he has. So 24, 26, 28 points. Over here on the other side, our player has 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 4 for 13, 16, 18, 22. And he has 3 golds for 25. And he doesn't have any other abilities that grant him any additional points. So our first player over here was the winner of this game. Well, I hope you guys found that video helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And like I've stated before, I would love to have this turn into a conversation. So have you guys played Villages of Velaria or any other game from Daily Magic Games? And if so, which one is your favorite? Or why do you not like them? Or, give me your opinions. Let me know what you guys are thinking. And as always, thanks so much for watching my videos. I do really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch them and to leave me comments in the comments section below. On top of that, I've also added a new Facebook page and a Twitter account. So I'll include links to those down below, and if you guys wouldn't mind jumping on over there and giving me some love on those pages, that would be great. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.